is a pond we've created some years ago to show to the visitors some biodiversity, aquatic biodiversity from this hill range, from the region. We have many common plants. We have lots of frogs. This is a common Iberian green frog. It's the most common amphibian in the Iberian Peninsula. You cannot see now, but underwater we have newts and we have some rare plants. I'll try to find the rare. One of my favorites, it's very discreet, at least on this season. In here underwater we have, this is Utricularia australis, tiny plant that eats mosquitoes. So it eats the most dangerous animal in the world. This plant is very small and it can live under the others and has these small mouths, let's say, that eat the mosquito larvae. The leaves have utricula, some balls like this with an opening and some hairs in the opening, around the opening. And these hairs are sensitive, so when a small animal passes by and disturbs these hairs, this ball inflates and sucks the mosquito inside and digests it. In this season they are really discreet, but in summer it's all flowering with yellow flowers. It's really beautiful when it's flowering. The biggest carnivorous plant in Portugal and one of the fastest in the world. Fastest swallowing animal. Spreads slowly to other ponds and it's a threatened species in Portugal. It was introduced here to save it. We are now creating some more ponds like this on schools, on gardens, and we've created a project called Charcas, that in Portuguese means like Noah's ponds, to save the rarest plants, the rarest freshwater plants of Portugal. And this year this pond starts being overgrown, so we will control some of the dominant plants and colonize with some other rare plants that are disappearing and that we want to save. And we hope that putting them on some of these ponds we can save them. And if people know them and start spreading them, they become common instead of threatened. It's very easy because this plant is it doesn't need to be rooted on the bottom. It's just floating between the other plants. So just we can take a small piece of it and put on other ponds and it starts spreading. So when we clean this one, because it has too much vegetation now, the plants that are rare that we want to save, we use the excess that we have here to put on other ponds that are lacking vegetation or lacking more interesting species. Now we are just starting this project, so we will start now with some tanks in the Agrarian School of Coimbra, and 3 ponds in Figueira da Foz and another one further to north. But on the past I've worked on another project that created many ponds, including this one, and have created some dozens of ponds around the country, the entire country. We are also helping people to put this plant or these rare plants on other ponds and telling people which plants are beautiful and useful to have on a pond like this, to avoid people to buy exotic and invasive plants that can become a problem. The more people know about these species, the less they will use invasive species that become a problem, both an ecological problem and an economical problem too. So we have here many interesting plants, even common plants. This one is Menta aquatica. It's an aromatic plant that it's edible and it's aromatic and medicinal. We have here Salix viminalis. It was a species used to make baskets. It also helps to clean the water. Here we have one that the farmers don't like, especially the people that produce rice, because it's a weed on the rice fields, but it's ornamental species called Alisma lanceolata. We have 3 species of willows here. These ones, Tifolifolia, are very common and very exigent on nutrients, so they help clean the water. And each winter, before they die, we cut them, so we export biomass from the pond, controlling the amount of nutrients in this water and keeping the water clean. And here we have one of the most important plants on the ponds. This is the pondweed. The name of this one is wide-leaved pondweed, Potamogeton nubosus, and it's very important to make refuge for wildlife, to clean the water. Newts use it to lay their eggs. Frogs use it as a refuge too, and as it has floating leaves, it keeps the water fresher during the summer. Makes some shadow to the water. So let's try to see some other rare plants. There is a very rare plant that is on this pond, but it's sometimes hidden here on this side. This season it's not the best season to see them. On spring they are more visible and with flowers. Some years ago I was working in Charcas com Vida, Ponds with Life, an environmental education campaign in the north of Portugal in a research center. And I started building ponds and teaching people how to build ponds for wildlife around the country. I left that project and to transform this primary school, an abandoned primary school, on an interpretation center about this region and about the water. And we decided to build a pond here. We had a training course about building ponds and created this pond in one day. And this interpretation center is called Escola de Agua, an interpretation center where the exhibition is outside, poses the many ways that water is important for us on the geology, the biology and the culture. It explains how water is so useful from different purposes for the population. And now we are working on a project research center in Coimbra about invasive species, and we are working with this new project about controlling the invasive freshwater plants and saving the rare freshwater plants, of course. The best way to save the rare plants is stop introducing more exotic plants in Portugal and using native plants on the ponds and gardens instead of using exotic and invasive species. Especially those that are listed as invasives. In Portugal we have a website about that called invasoras.pt, like invaders.pt. On that website we give information about which species are invasive in Portugal and what can we do to identify them and to control them, and which species are, which better alternatives do we have, for example using native species that are disappearing and that we can easily propagate and that are beautiful too. invasoras.pt